Alright, so you join me down on the reservoir. It's been fishing really hard, but I'm tucked away in a nice corner. The wind's blowing down here, so sorry if there's a bit of crackling on the sound, but it just looked far too good not to set up down here. So I just thought I'd go into a bit of detail about the rig changes I've made and the hook bait changes I've made recently. Probably since the spring I've swapped over to using the cultured hook baits from Nash. These ones are the Key Cray. I've been making my own boilies and I've been putting a lot of crayfish meal in them and other fish meals, and these just seem to match that perfectly. They also do them in the standard Key and the Citrus, which is a bright pink cord bait, and I think they now also do them in the Scopex Squid. They're based around the idea of wrapping your baits in paste to give off more attraction, but these take it to the next level. They've just got loads of amino acids, loads of vitamins, loads of good stuff, all layered up around a nice core, balanced wafter. And the idea is just to add that natural layer of attraction to your hook baits. These are a 20 miller. I've been using a bigger bait in here just to try and get around the bream. They do break down to, I think, a 15 mil core, but that's that chunkier size. It's just vaguely to try and stop the bream a little bit more. The rig that I've swapped to is similar but not quite the same as the German rig that I was using a lot in all my other videos. I love that rig, works really well, but the reason why I've swapped is because with these cultured baits and on the reservoir I've been using a PVA bag, and with the German rig the PVA bag can sometimes have a habit of sliding up the shank a little bit and just moving that bead, and it won't be sitting quite as well how you want it with that bead slid down the shank. So I've swapped over to a D rig, but instead of tying it up with fluorocarbon, I'm tying it up with coated braid. The reason behind this is because this reservoir has got quite a lot of mussels, a lot of snags, loads of weed, and the coated braid just gives me that little bit more of abrasion resistance than the fluorocarbon. That's the only reason really, because the fluorocarbon sits brilliantly. Everyone knows how well that fluoro D rig works. And this just is a slightly different version of that really for when you've got snags. So to start with, I'm using quite a stiff coated material. The reason for that over the, say, a soft coated or a semi-stiff is because these cultured baits, with the skin around them to start with, they aren't that critically balanced. So having that stiffer material just helps kick everything away from the lead that little bit better. So to start with, you want to peel off a nice length of coated material, because you're going to need a bit to make the D around the hook to start with. You can get your scissors, just cut that off, and then you want to turn that round and make yourself a nice loop to start with. Now the hooks that I've been using are the Fang X's in either a size 4 or 5. That curved shank style hook works really well with a D rig. That's just what the D helps follow the curve of the shank really nicely. So you want to make your loop, put it along the back of the shank, and then you want to do a short 4-turn whipping knot. Instead of going like a normal whipping knot on a chod, say, where you want the material to come off down the eye, you want it to come off the other end, going away from the eye. So that way you can bring it back round to create your D. So you just want to give it 4 turns, give it a little wet down, and then pull your tag end through. Don't pull it right down yet, because you need to slide it into position. The position I like to have the hair coming off is dead in line with the barb of the hook. Once you've got that in position and the material all straight, give it another quick little lick, then pull it all down tight. And that will now grip and hold there really, really nicely. If you just cut off the tag end, swap hands, and then just give that a little blob down, being careful not to damage the knot. Cover it with your fingers, give it a little blob with the back of the lighter. Now the next thing you want to do is to add a hook ring swivel. I've been using these over a standard hook ring, sorry. They just give the bait that bit more free movement. So thread that down your hook link, and then you want to pass that through the back of the eye of the hook. like so. Just pull that all through, and then you just need to eyeball the size of your D. You don't want too big a D on there, you don't want your bait miles away from the hook, but yet you don't want it trapped and really tight. So just give it a little eyeball up until it looks right. And then the way I tie this down is, instead of using a standard knotless knot, I actually tie this up KD style, and that just helps the D kick out that little bit better away from the shank and gives you that little bit more movement on the hair. So you start off with 2 turns like you would normally for a knotless knot. Then if you hold that and open up the D a little bit, you can then carry on your whipping, but going underneath and through the D. So that's 1, 2, 3, 1 more. And then you want to pull that all tight, feed it back through the eye of the hook. This coated braid's a bit thick, takes a bit getting it through. Wet everything down. Get yourself a nice puller. And give your knot a good pull down and test. Get that nice and tight. Really test your knots out before they go out, so you know they're not going to fail on you. And there you have it. You have the D section all set up on your rig. Nice bit of free movement. It really turns well, flicks over, and really does catch quickly into the hand. Now you can fish this straight through with a coating if you like, and a lot of people do. The same as the fluorocarbon, that whole nice stiff boom section almost. But the way I like to fish it is I like to leave a centimetre of coating coming off the eye, and then I like to strip back a centimetre or 2 to expose the softer braid. The reason for this, with this stiff coated braid, that adds a tiny little bit of kicker just to give a really aggressive angle coming out of the eye, and then you've still got that soft coating for another centimetre or 2 to help that bait really drop down into the fish's mouth. So just give yourself a centimetre or so from the eye, and then just strip back a little bit, and you can leave that all blobbed up there. You don't need to get rid of it. You can use that to wrap your putty around. I like to put a nice big chunk of putty on there to help pull everything down into the fish's mouth. And then I also like to put a little bit of putty about an inch or so up from the knot of the figure of 8 loop on the other end, and that just helps kick everything away from the lead nicely, having that little bit of putty down the end. As I say, I use this with a figure of 8 loop at the other end. The reason for that is I'm fishing this on a helicopter setup at the moment, and that just goes onto a quick change swivel, and that loop just helps connect to that really easily. The other reason for it is I use quite a big loop, and that is so it gives you that double material for the first inch or 2 of your hook link, and that really helps kick things away, that extra stiffness of having the doubled over material. So just wet that, give it a pull down, cut off your tag ends, and then carefully, using your fingers to cover the hook link and the knot, just give that a little blob down. Then once you're done, just give the whole rig a good steam, get it nice and poker straight, and then you're good to go. Just then mounting the hook bait onto the ring swivel at the end. I'll go into a bit of detail in a moment just how to do that, because it is a little different to mounting a standard wafter. But yeah, that's the rig I've been using, really been enjoying it. Kicks down really nicely, pulls in really good. Yeah, just a great way to present a wafter or a critically balanced bait. Right, so when it comes to mounting the cultured hook baits onto the D-rig, it can be a little bit fiddly, but once you get the idea of it, they're really simple really. So take one of your baits. These are the 20mm ones. I quite like a big bait. There's quite a few bream and stuff in here, so bigger bait might deter them a little bit. Doesn't seem to, still catching a few on them. But yeah, they're a really nice size, especially with a size 4, something like that. They sit really nicely. First thing, just pierce it as normal with a baiting needle. Same as normal. They're quite firm, the baits in the middle, they are hardened. So make sure you don't pierce it through into your finger or anything as you go through. And then the first thing I do while it's still on the baiting needle, this is just a puller. It's got a couple of little points on it as well. And I just like to remove some of the coating, not completely, just pull it to one side from both ends where the needle's going through. And that's just going to allow space for your swivel to pull in one end and for your bait stop on the other end. Because if you just put it on normally as it was, with your hair stop sat on the top and your swivel just sticking out the bottom, once your coating's dissolved down after a few hours, it starts to break right down, or like me, you leave your baits out quite a long time, then it's going to come loose, because where the coating's disappeared, you're not going to be tight to the core of the bait. So if you remove some of the coating first, pull everything down nice and tight, then even when the coating's gone, your bait's going to be still sitting perfectly out there. So it's really soft, the coating. You can just pull it to one side. It's quite sticky. Try not to lose any, because you can mould it back around afterwards, so you want as much attraction there as possible. Just pull it all away a little bit from the bottom side where the swivel's going in, and then on the top side where I'm going to have the hair stop, just make a little slot, a little groove just for that hair stop to sit in nicely. Just a little bit fiddly. Make sure you get right down to that core of the bait. That way you're going to be sat nice and solid, no movement. Once that's dissolved. There we go. So next thing, take a bit of bait floss, dental floss, anything like that, a nice length, just give yourself something to work with. And then you want to thread that through the eye of your swivel on the rig wing swivel. Sometimes you need to wet it down if it's frayed a little bit. And there we go, so it's folded nicely in half. Take your bait, thread it through the eye of the needle. Try and get the gate to close, a bit fiddly. There we go. And then you can just slide your bait up on as normal, like you are when you're fishing any swivel or a hook swivel like that. Now you want to make sure that the swivel pulls into the core of the bait, down to just about so you can see the bottom of the barrel of the swivel. Don't pull it in too far, otherwise you'll stop the bottom of the swivel twisting. You won't have that movement quite as freely as if you have it just sticking out a little bit. So pull it down, it will pull in nice and easily. And then on the top, open up your 2 strands of your bait floss. It's easy if you put it on your knees or hold the bait just lightly between your knees or something. Take a normal hair stop and tie off just an overhand knot and pull it down so you just have a little small loop. Feed in your hair stop and then just pull it down nice and tight. Make sure it's nice and tight to the bait, but don't pull it too hard, because otherwise you'll end up pulling the swivel through the bottom without noticing, and everything will not be moving quite as freely. Then just tie off 2 or 3 overhand knots. You don't have to go mad, just give it a couple of knots. Once you've done the first couple, you can pull it a bit tighter because it won't move that swivel. There we go. Nip off your tag ends. Don't chuck them on the floor. Make sure you take them home with you, like that. Then just blob them down with a lighter. Use the back of your lighter, get them nice and small and tucked out of the way. And then you can just fold what you peeled away earlier with the little point. You can just cover that back up over your bait in a bait stop, sorry. There we go, it's completely gone. And then on the bottom, you can just push all that down just around the swivel. Make sure you don't stop the swivel from turning so it's still nice and free. Make sure it's all pushed down nice and tight. There you go, one D-rig with a cultured bait. It's absolutely perfect. Once it's all dissolved, that'll still be sitting brilliantly just as a normal wafter, still letting off attraction. And that's the setup I've been using. Well, one last little thing, where you've folded back the material, if you strip some back like I have, I do like to add a little bit of putty, just mould round. We've got some here. There we go. Break off a little bit of putty, roll it into a little ball. Then you can just fold that round, and that'll add something nice for the putty to grip on. That'll just help pull the hook down into the fish's mouth. It's just a little bit of weight. And then I also, some people don't, but I've seen a few videos and people talking about it before, by putting a little bit of putty, maybe an inch from the knot of your figure of 8 loop if you've used one. The idea behind that, just an inch or so from it, just wrap that around the hook link nice and tight, give it a ring, roll in your fingers. And the idea behind that is that when you cast out, maybe not so much with a heavier bait, but the idea is just that will go down first and just help kick everything away from your lead setup. It seems to kick away quite nicely like that, and helps just pin everything tight down to the bottom with those 2 little bits of putty. You can see there it just holds down nicely, and that will just help pull everything down into the fish's mouth. So there we go, that's just a little bit about the setup I've been using, about the Nash cultured baits, hook baits. Yeah, give them a try. I don't think you'll be disappointed with them.